Have you ever wanted to design a redstone machine that could act on its own? Things like traps that wait until the perfect moment to activate? For that, you need what's called an AND gate. And that's what this lesson is all about. Hi, I'm Mistracer, and welcome back to Redstone from Zero, a series where I teach you redstone from its foundations, assuming you come in knowing absolutely nothing about it. I recommend watching the series in order from Lesson 0, but I'll do my best to be comprehensible even if you haven't. With that out of the way, let's talk about the AND gate. The AND gate is a little more complicated than the OR gate we talked about last time, but not terribly so. In the fence gate analogy, it still has two pull strings, just like the OR gate, but this time the gate only opens when both of them have been pulled. So you can see why we call it the AND gate, because pulling the left string alone does nothing, pulling the right string alone does nothing, but pulling the left string and the right string at the same time opens the gate. So while the OR gate is like a keycard door where any authorized keycard can unlock it, the AND gate is more like the launch system for a rocket, where any single launch key by itself does nothing. You need both keys inserted at the same time in order to activate. This is the kind of gate you'd want to use for a trap that waits until the perfect moment to activate, because you only want it to go off when the arming lever is on and they've stepped on the pressure plate in the trap room. This lets you walk over the pressure plate safely in order to trick your target into thinking it's safe. And then you can pull the lever to arm the trap, so the next time they step on the pressure plate, the trap springs to life. This is the symbol for the AND gate. Similar to the OR and NOR gates, the side with two lines going in is the input, and the side with a single line coming out is the output. As a Venn diagram, the AND gate looks like this. That's because unlike OR gates where we smush together the red parts to create the final product, in this case we instead only keep the parts where red overlaps. The AND gate will only output a redstone signal when A is on and B is on. So if OR is like a rubber stamp, where each additional stamp only increases the area of the final diagram, then AND is like a cookie cutter, where each additional use can only remove parts of the red area, or leave it the same. So cookie cutter A gets rid of everything not contained within circle A, and then cookie cutter B gets rid of every part of circle A that isn't also part of circle B. By the way, does this Venn diagram look suspiciously familiar to you? If you've watched Lesson 10, it should. Because if we take the not A or not B Venn diagram from last time and invert it by swapping red and white, it gives us this exact Venn diagram. Does this mean that if we take the output of not A or not B and invert it, that's equivalent to an AND gate? Yes. Yes, it does. But let's build one to prove it. So we start with inputs A and B, these two levers. Then we'll use two NOT gates to invert them, giving us not A coming out of here and not B coming out of here. We'll combine the two with an OR gate, just by connecting the two redstone lines together, and that gives us not A or not B. Then finally, we'll use a redstone torch to invert the output, giving us not A nor not B. We'll hook a redstone lamp up so you can see the output. When A is off and B is off, the output lamp is off. When A is on and B is off, the output lamp is off. When A is off and B is on, the output lamp is off. Only when A is on and B is on does the output lamp finally light up. So the not A nor not B we just built is indeed an AND gate. We can compact this a bit to make what most redstoners think of when they think AND gate. But it still has all the same parts. See how both inputs get inverted, then ORed together with this center redstone dust? And then the output gets inverted again. That's all you need to make an AND gate. By the way, I should mention that there are many ways to build each logic gate in Minecraft. So if you see them built differently elsewhere, that doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong. I've chosen layouts that I think most clearly lay out the internal workings of each logic gate, for the sake of understanding, but I encourage you to explore different ways of building them. Anyway, back to AND gates. You can use AND gates to make redstone machines that only activate when all conditions are met. So in this trap that pulls the stairs out from under your unsuspecting victim, we have an AND gate down here that makes it so the trap won't activate unless the arming lever has been pulled. Here's the not A, here's the not B, and here's the NOR gate. Combined, that makes an AND gate, with the torch at the bottom here as the gate output. Using an AND gate like this lets us disguise the trap as simply a pressure plate to open a door. Because until you pull the lever to arm the trap, that's all the pressure plate will do. Once you've pulled the lever, the first input to the AND gate is now on. So the AND gate will finally output a redstone signal the next time someone steps on the pressure plate and turns on the other input to the AND gate. That will power this redstone line that powers this block, which turns off this redstone torch. And since this redstone torch is what was making the sticky piston extend, depowering the torch will make the sticky piston retract, and send someone falling down onto your pointed dripstone. Particularly attentive viewers may be wondering if it's really necessary for this trap to use 4 torches, when all this torch is really doing is inverting the inverted output of this torch. And you're absolutely right, we can rebuild this trap to only need 2 torches like this, which leads us to our next topic, the NAND gate. Much like how the NOR gate is simply the OR gate with an inverted output, the NAND gate is constructed by inverting the output of a regular AND gate. And since the AND gate already uses a redstone torch to invert its output, you could add another redstone torch to invert that again, but the opposite of an opposite is just the original thing. Meaning, to convert a regular AND gate into a NAND gate, all you have to do is knock off the redstone torch at the output, and instead take the output of the redstone dust. This is the symbol for a NAND gate. It's just a regular AND gate with a circle on its output to represent negation. The Venn diagram for a NAND gate looks like this. Yes, that's right. It's exactly the same as not A or not B. In fact, there's a famous rule explaining this called De Morgan's Law. It says, in short, that A NAND B is equivalent to not A or not B. It also says that A nor B is equivalent to not A and not B. If you're having trouble processing that, the way I remember it is with the little negation circles from circuit diagrams. You've seen how putting a little circle on the output of an AND gate turns it into a NAND gate, right? Well, you can put little circles on the input lines as well, and it also negates the input. So to write not A nor not B, we just completely surround the OR gate with negation circles. And like we said, that's equivalent to A and B. Meaning, if you see an OR gate that's completely surrounded by negation circles, you can just replace that with an AND gate. And an AND gate completely surrounded by negation circles can be replaced with an OR gate. De Morgan's Law is useful not only for simplifying complex logical statements, but also because OR gates are really easy to make in Minecraft. So when we're building an AND gate, what we're actually doing is building a NAND gate and inverting its output with a redstone torch. And when we're building that NAND gate, what we're actually doing is building an OR gate with inverted inputs, just like De Morgan's Law says we can. So yeah, our AND gate is actually not A nor not B under the hood, and it will likely stay that way until Mojang releases a block version of an AND gate, which would just be a block that needs to be powered from 2 different sides in order to output a redstone signal from a 3rd side. And now it's time for today's cool thing you can build. If you're expecting me to show you how to build a trap, congratulations, that's exactly what this is. But sadly, this trap only works in Java, where TNT minecarts are pretty trigger happy. You can get instant explosions on Bedrock from having TNT minecarts fall at least 4 blocks, but, well, there's still the delay of waiting for the minecart to land, which is unfortunate. So as I said, this one's Java only. Oh, by the way, these glass blocks aren't necessary. They're just there to show you the floor level, which could be built out of anything. You can imagine that they extend as far as you want in any direction. From a high level, how this trap works is you have an AND gate that controls the powered rails, so the powered rails only turn on when both inputs to the AND gate are on. When the powered rails turn on, they propel TNT minecarts into the wall, where they explode, taking your victim with them. Keep in mind that because there are multiple TNT minecarts and therefore multiple explosions involved, that you should expect the victim's equipment and items to be vaporized, unless you have keep inventory turned on. So don't use this kind of trap unless you're okay with their inventory getting completely wiped. Getting into specifics, what we have here is a bog standard AND gate that outputs to the powered rails. The right input to the AND gate is the arming lever, which can be as far away as you want, just make sure to extend the signal with repeaters as necessary so the signal from the lever makes it to the AND gate. The left input to the AND gate is the pressure plate, which powers the redstone dust underneath it to depower the AND gate's left redstone torch. Once both inputs are on, the AND gate's left and right torches will both be off, and the output torch will turn on, powering the rails. And as before, when the rails turn on, they propel the TNT minecarts into the wall, where they explode. We haven't had a lesson on minecarts yet, But all you need to know about TNT minecarts for this is that they explode on collision, and that you can place multiple minecarts of any kind in the same place by clicking the rail block beneath them, which is also a Java exclusive feature. Right-click the rail 4 times to place 4 TNT minecarts. And remember that placing the TNT minecarts should be the last step you take building these kinds of traps, because otherwise you're liable to accidentally blow yourself up setting up the rest of it. And you can test them with regular minecarts if you need to do some dry runs of something more complicated. But we've seen a lot of pressure plates during this lesson, so let's talk about a couple other kinds of triggers you could use. You could use an observer looking up at a door and outputting to a copper bulb to make a door that explodes as soon as it's opened, if they didn't turn off the arming lever first. You could also use a subtract mode comparator reading from a chest through the wall to make a chest that explodes when someone removes its contents. Just remember that you'll lose the entire contents of the chest when the TNT minecarts explode. You want to see me set off the traps, don't you? Alright, I'll make a copy of this world so you can see the traps go kaboom. Gee, I wonder why there's a pressure plate here. Ah, home sweet. Unattended diamonds? Don't mind if I do. Now that we're alive again, I should mention that although I'm using arming levers for these example traps, not only can you use other things to determine when a trap is armed, like a hopper-based hourglass countdown timer, or a daylight detector, or a skulk sensor, though we haven't covered those last two yet, but you can also have AND gates with more than 2 inputs. As many as you can fit, really. And the trap won't go off until every single input is on. So you can have as many conditions on your trap as you want to ensure it goes off at the perfect time. Before we end, let's review what we talked about today. 1. AND gates never output a redstone signal unless both inputs are on. 2. NAND gates always output a redstone signal unless both inputs are on. 3. Under the hood, A and B is really not A NAND B. Further, under the hood, A NAND B is really not A or not B. 5. Remembering that the little circle means negation, De Morgan's Law says not A or not B is equivalent to A NAND B, and not A and not B is equivalent to A nor B. Which also means this is equivalent to this, and this is equivalent to this. As always, if you have any questions or something doesn't make sense, feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to explain things to you. If you enjoyed this lesson and think it deserves a like, I greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe as well. It helps out the channel a lot. With that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!